If you are familiar with the Genesis Coupe differential set, Hyundai chose to only use 3 mounting points. You'll need a factory differential mount.
Start to get the bushing in.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another installation video. Sorry I look a mess right now. I've just got done working on my buddy's M2 competition, working on his exhaust. Thought I'd make a video showing you how you fix the problem of not having a 4th bushing for your differential on the 2010 to 2016 Genesis Coupe. If you are familiar with the Genesis Coupe differential setup, you'll know that from the factory, there are 4 mounting points for the differential, but Hyundai chose to only use 3 mounting points. So today we'll be fixing that on the black Genesis. So here she is. Shop's a mess right now. Like I said, I just got done working on my buddy's M2 competition, and I'm waiting for the yellow Genesis to get back from the shop. But first thing we're gonna do to go ahead and get this installation rolling is get the car up in the air. Just like that, guys, we've got the car up in the air. It's always best practice if you're gonna be lifting your car, use jack stands. I've got a jack supporting and then 4 jack stands at each of the jack points on the car. So now we'll be able to climb up under the rear of the car and see a little bit more about what we're gonna be doing today.
So as you climb up underneath the rear of the Genesis Coupe, you'll quickly notice you've got a bushing here for the differential and you've got nothing here. Now normally this hole is a little bit cleaner. I did for a while there just have a bolt stuck through to restrict the movement of the differential. But what today we're going to be doing is installing a factory 4th differential mount here to rigidify the movement of the differential. So from the factory, Hyundai uses the mount here in the rear, and then the one mount on this side right here. They chose not to use this 4th mount here due to reduction of NVH, but for a sports car, you really want to have a rigid rear end. So today we're going to be installing a factory mount to the 4th location. There are kits out there that have upgraded polyurethane mounts, and there are solid mounts. I would not recommend going with a solid mount. This has been known to snap these bolts on our cars. And if you're going to upgrade to polyurethane, the best idea there is to change out all the differential mounts to polyurethane, which is a lot more involved of a process. So today we're just going to be cutting and installing a 4th bushing in the factory style right there.
So the parts that you'll need to do this installation is obviously you'll need a factory differential mount in the style of the rear. There's a different style from the 2 front mounts to the single rear mount, so make sure you're getting the correct part number when you're ordering this bushing. That part number is listed right here, 55495 2M000. Secondly, you'll need a bolt. I'm sure you can buy this from Hyundai as well. I happen to have 3 bolts left over because I swapped out my differential from the factory standard differential, which is 353, to an LSD 353 differential from an R-Spec. And lastly, you'll need some way to cut the rear subframe. What I chose to do is buy a 3-inch hole saw. I picked this up at Lowe's. This is a little bit smaller of a diameter than the bushing, which will allow for you to fine detail it in to have a perfect fitment for this differential mount.
Okay, so from underneath the car, in order to gain access to drill the hole out of the subframe here, you will need to drop down your sway bar. That's 2 14mm bolts on this side and 2 14mm bolts on this side. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Use impact sockets, because you will break your sockets. Let's try that again. So with the sway bar out of the way, you'll notice you have a lot more space to get your hole saw into this area. You also notice that there's already a bevel built into the subframe. This is where that bushing is going to sit. But what I like to do is go ahead and install the bushing, thread the bolt in, and then you can make a mark around the circumference of the bushing so you know you're cutting exactly where it needs to be centered up with where that hole is on the car. Now that you've got that hole marked out, you'll see that the 3-inch hole saw bit is a little bit smaller and kind of sits inside that beveled area. So that's where you'll be starting to cut, and if you need to clearance anymore, you'll use a Dremel to make sure you get a perfect fit for that bushing. Now that you're ready to start drilling, make sure you just grab your drill and that 3-inch hole saw bit. And before you start drilling, make sure you've got your proper personal protective equipment on. I've got gloves, safety goggles. So let's go ahead and get this hole cut.
Well guys, it is much later. It is now nighttime. In that last clip, I did have some issues with the hole saw staying straight. I'll show you what I did. We did get the hole cut out of the subframe, and I'll show you how I achieved that now.
So here's that hole I was talking about. What I did to make this easier is I used a sacrificial bolt from the stock that I had, and those hole saws have a drill bit in the center that's supposed to help keep the bit centered. So I drilled a hole in the center of this bolt, threaded it into the differential, and used that as a guide to make this hole centered and straight with that differential mount location. This did take some time, and my hole saw bit did end up snapping on me, but I was still able to finish up the job and get the hole cut. It is still slightly smaller than the bushing, which is exactly what you want. And now what we will do is we will clean up around the edges and make this hole fit exactly perfect for the bushing so that there's no problems there.
Well guys, it's the next day and it's time to finish up the installation from last night. So I finished cutting the hole last night, and I was going to use the Dremel to clearance the bit that we had left to get the bushing installed, since that hole saw bit was slightly smaller than the diameter of the bushing. I found a better solution to clearance that out that's a lot easier and quicker than using the Dremel. Basically what I did is I took the drill with that hole saw bit and I slowly worked just the edge where the hole saw bit is around the circumference of that hole and widen it out. That way we keep a circular shape to that hole, and it's going to wear out the material evenly all around. I used this bit just very slowly around the edge of this hole saw bit and got the hole widened just enough to start to get the bushing in, and I'll show you where we're at now.
So now we're underneath the car. Once again, I took the drill bit and slowly at an angle went around the circumference to widen it just enough to start to get the bushing in. What we've done is we started to push the bushing in. It's right there coming in, and we've got the bolts threaded into the differential so that we're keeping it centered. And then I'm just taking a spare piece of wood and a rubber mallet and forcing that bushing into the hole with some mechanical agitation, if you will. So little by little, we're starting to hit the wood which will push this bushing in, and you'll have to continue to thread this bolt in the more you push the bushing in. And once the back of the bushing is flush up against the differential, as seen on the other side, then you're far enough in and you're good to go.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna input this video here. I wanted to show a little bit better what I did after I got the hole cut in the subframe. So we're doing this modification to the yellow Genesis. It's back now, more on that later. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you a better video of what I'm doing to widen the hole for the bushing.
As you can see, we've already got the hole cut. Now that I've done this already one time on the black Genesis, it's leagues easier to do a second time. I actually probably spent 10 times the amount of time getting this low ass car up on jack stands, and for this car specifically, I had to remove the exhaust in order to get enough room to cut the hole out. So we just finished cutting the hole. As you'll see, the bushing will not fit. We could even try to hammer it in. It's not going in. Hole's still too small. So we're gonna need to clearance the hole a little bit bigger. And here's how we're gonna do that. So as you'll see, the hole saw bit fits in the hole, but we need to clearance it to be a little bit bigger. So what we'll do is we'll slightly angle the hole saw bit, and then where the actual saw is, we'll use that around the edges to make the hole still round, but slightly bigger.
It doesn't take much.
And we'll stop and try to fit it in there. Seems like it's almost big enough. Maybe a little bit more on this side. Still slightly too small. So we'll clearance a little bit more on this side. And we'll test fit that. That's almost there. Not quite. You want it to be just big enough to where you have to use the wooden mallet to get into the hole. Not quite there. Try that. That might be enough right there. Started to go in, so we're gonna go a little bit more. Just like that, we've clearanced the hole. We'll just have to continue to press fit this bushing until it's almost flush with the diff in the back. So we'll go ahead and get this bushing finished off. Take your piece of wood, put there. As you get it more in, you'll see that that bolt starts to come out some as the bushing's going in, so you'll thread that in. Otherwise, the bolt will protrude farther out than the face of the bushing here, and you'll just be hitting the bolt, which you don't want to do because that will put a lot of stress on the threads inside the differential. So we'll just tighten this until we start to feel that rubber portion of the bushing pulling in some. Come back with the wood. Push it in a little bit more. Just like that, we've got the bushing all the way in. You'll see from under here, it's flush against the differential, just like on the other side. So now what you want to do is just tighten this bolt. You'll start to feel that it's fully engaged. You've got a lot of resistance, and you want to torque this down to spec. And then just clean up and you're good to go. Also, I did add some paint around the circumference of this bushing just to try to aid with any rust that may occur due to bare metal from when you cut that hole out. Just like that, guys, for less than $75, this part right here is only $50 and the hole saw bit was around $20, $25. You've got a fourth differential mount. You didn't have to drop the differential, you didn't have to drop the subframe, and it really was not that difficult to do. So now what we'll do is we will reinstall the sway bar, we'll drop the car, and we'll take it for a test drive.